Hello, my yarny friends. I'm Sara Sach, and you know what day it is? It's Friday Fun Day. Woo! Well, today I have just a really fun little project for you. These are Granny Square Scrubbies. They measure about 6 by 6 inches. And this particular yarn, I'll tell you all about it in the description for what we need. But you can make this out of this scrubby yarn from Hobby Lobby. You can make it out of a chunky number 5 cotton. You can make it out of putting 2 strands of yarn together that are medium 4 weight. So there's lots of options here with yarn. This particular yarn is one of my favorites to use for scrubbies. And this is a really fun pattern. It is a granny square, and we use some front post stitches in the center to give us some extra scrubbing power. But also when you turn it over, you can use the back as well because it has those ridges for scrubbing as well. Now, these are perfect for scrubbing in the bathroom and for scrubbing in the kitchen. Don't mix them though. If you use it in the bathroom, keep it in the bathroom. If you're scrubbing in the kitchen, just keep it in the kitchen. You don't want to mix those up. But these are made with Hobby Lobby's Yarn Bee Scrub It yarn. And this is a Lion brand cotton I had on hand. I don't remember the name of it, but you could probably easily find it. It has a strand of like a cream and then a bumpy sort of blue or red, yellow, green, whatever colors that it comes in. And it does make a nice scrubby. And it does have those ridges, so it will clean well, but not like this scrubby yarn does. It is a neat yarn to use. It's super fun to work with, and there's lots of fun things that you can do with this particular yarn. I just wanted some scrubbies, so I thought it would be a great time to do a fun scrubby with some ridges for cleaning. And this is so bright and colorful, it reminds me of a sunflower. And by changing the colors in different ways, you can come up with lots of different scrubbies. You can even get in your yarn stash and put some colors together and make some fun scrubbies. But then once you make them, you're going to have to clean because it's spring cleaning time. Now you can find this complete pattern with all pictures and information on it on my blog. And as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make our Granny Square Scrubby, of course, we're going to need some scrubby yarn. This is Yarn Bee Scrubology Scrub It, and it comes in lots of different, these are just some of them, solid colors. And I love this because you can do lots of different shapes and lots of different things and make some really nice scrubbies. You know, scrubbies that look pretty and are useful. It is 100% nylon. It is quite abrasive, but not really terribly bad for like your hands. It's just good for scrubbing pots and pans, maybe the bathtub ring or the sink. I don't suggest using this on any of your skin. These scrubbies are basically to clean the dishes, the toilets, the kitchen, lots of those kinds of things. Although don't mix your, potty and your kitchen scrubbies. Have separate scrubbies for those. All right, so you're going to need approximately 2 ounces total. I did this one in 3 different colors. You can do it all in one. You can do several colors. I think for today, I'm going to use the yellow and the green, maybe yellow, orange, and green. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see as we go. But I am going to use 2 or 3 colors so I can show you how to change colors with this yarn because it is a little bit different than working with, say, a cotton or an acrylic. We're going to stitch today with our J hook. And the reason we're using J is I want to bring that in just a little bit snug. It does call for a J hook, and that's what we're going to use. A lot of times on a bulky 5, I might go up and use the next one, a K, but I think we'll stick with the J because I like the way that it stitches the stitches nice and tight. You're going to need a needle for weaving in your ends. And it is a little bit different with this yarn, and make sure that you have a needle with a nice big eye that you can get that chunky yarn through. It does not have to be as pointed. It just needs to be able to get the yarn through the eye. Like I said, I'm going to show you how to weave it in as well, because it is a little bit different than working with other yarns. And then of course you're going to need a pair of scissors. Now before we get started, I do want to tell you that you don't have to use this particular yarn. If you want to, you can use 2 strands of cotton. If you like to make your scrubbies out of acrylic, you can use 2 strands of acrylic held together, and you'll still get a nice scrubby yarn. Now there are some different types of scrubby yarns out there, and some of them are medium 4. If you do that, you're going to need to hold 2 strands together in order for it to be the same size. All right, so there are some other options if you do not have this particular scrubby yarn. All right, let's get started. We're going to begin with our slip knot. We're going to chain 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle, so we'll put our yarn over our hook, pull it through that first loop there, snug that down, and tie that stay knot. Now, if you want to use another method to make your beginning ring, you certainly can, like the magic circle or magic ring. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin just like a regular granny square. So we're going to go in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. We'll stitch 2 double crochets. And we'll chain 2. All right, let me get some more yarn out here. So we have our chain 3 and 2 double crochets. It counts as 3 double crochets, chain 2. And now we're going to stitch 3 double crochets. I will tell you this yarn is a little bit different when working with it until you get used to it. It does have a little bit of stretch. It's just different than working with, say, a cotton or an acrylic that we're used to. All right, so I stitched 3 double crochets, chain 2, and I'm going to do this 2 more times. So we have 4 sets of 3 double crochets, chain 2. Just like we would if we were starting an old-fashioned granny square. You'll also notice I am stitching over that tail of yarn. That'll just make it easier to weave that in. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of 3 double crochets. Chain 2, we're going to join to that chain 3 with a slip stitch. We're going to slip stitch in those 2 double crochets and then slip stitch in that chain 2 space. And I'm going to go ahead and chain 4. All right. Now, before I go on and do row 2, I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to grab that tail of yarn and give it a good hard pull because I want to close up that hole. And now I'm going to take this needle. When weaving in this type of yarn, it can be a little bit tricky. All right, so I like to flatten that over, get it through that needle. All right, and we're going to go on around a little bit, going under those stitches, but not through the front. Give it a good hard pull. We're going to go up a couple loops and then go back the way we came. Normally we go through some of the fibers of the yarn, but it's not possible with this particular type of yarn. Okay, I'm going to give it a good hard pull. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up through some of these stitches up here. But you'll notice I did that backwards because I want to get the end of that tail of yarn back through. And by going one way, back the other way, then back the other way, and giving it a good hard pull, that's how we're going to keep that from coming undone. And then clip it. All right. So we've completed round 1. we have 4 sets of 3 double crochets, chain 2. Now I chained 4, but we actually need to chain 1 more because this will count as a double crochet, chain 2. And then we'll double crochet in that same chain 2 space. And that will give us double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. All right. Now this brings us to those 3 double crochets. And we're going to stitch what's called a front post double crochet around those 3. So we'll yarn over. The post of your stitch is around the body of it, or the post of your double crochet stitch, and we're still stitching a double crochet. We're just putting it in a different place. So we're going around the body of the stitch or the post instead of in the top where we normally stitch our double crochets. And that's 3 front post. We'll try that again. 3 front post double crochets. All right. And you'll know you did that correctly if you look on the back and you have a little bit of a ridge right there in those 3 stitches because we stitched around the post, not in the top of the stitch. All right, that brings us to our chain 2 space, and we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that chain 2 space. And that brings us to our next 3 double crochets. And we'll stitch a front post double crochet around the next 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3 front post double crochets. And we'll see the front, it gives us those little ridges to give us something to scrub with. And on the back, you can see there's a ridge there. All right, and then we'll go to the next one and stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that next chain 2 space. And then we'll just repeat what we did here on these 2 sides. 3 front post double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Get some more yarn out here. Now I'm to my corner, so I'm going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And that brings us to the last 3. So we'll make a front post double crochet in those last 3. 1, 2. It's a little noisy, isn't it? 3. All right, so now we have our last corner here, and this is where we started, and we're going to join to the 1, 2, 3rd chain of that chain 5 with a slip stitch, and then slip stitch in that chain 2 space and chain 4. But I'm going to change colors here, so I'm not going to chain 4. So what will happen is anytime you change colors, you're going to want to do that chain actually 5, not 4, with the next color, okay? And so I'm going to show you how to do that because changing colors can be a little bit tricky when we're working with a granny square and using this particular yarn. All right, so I'm going to change to my yellow yarn. So I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to give myself just a little bit more of a tail than I normally do when I'm cutting off yarn because this weaving in this particular kind of yarn is a little bit different. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my yellow. Make sure I get the right tail here. Go in, pull up that loop, and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll come back and deal with these in just a minute. All right, but let's get started on round or row 3. We're going to double crochet in that same chain 2 space, and that chain 5 counts as a double crochet, chain 2, and then we double crocheted. We're going to double crochet in that first double crochet, just your regular old double crochet. And that brings us to those 3 front posts. So we're going to stitch a front post double crochet around each of those front posts. So 1, 2, and 3. All right. Then we'll stitch a regular double crochet in that next double crochet. There we go. And then that brings us to our next chain 2 space where we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. All right, I want to show you the back real quick. This is how it looks in the front. You can see those front posts stick up there, gives us our scrubbing power there. And if you look on the back, it'll see these ridges here. That's how it should look. And the thing is, it makes the back so it's nice and scrubby also. All right, let's go ahead and finish this row. So we're going to stitch a double crochet in the double crochet, just like we normally do. Then we'll front post double crochet around those 3 front post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, double crochet in that regular double crochet, and then that brings us to our chain 2 space, which again, double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. All right, this is how it looks on the front, and this is how it looks on the back. All right, let's keep going. Double crochet in the double crochet, front post double crochet in the 3 front post double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And you may notice that it curls up a little bit. Just stretch it out a little. It's the nature of the nylon. All right, then we'll double crochet in that next one, and then that brings us to our corner. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. All right, let's finish our last side here. So we have a double crochet, front post double crochet in those 3. 1, 2, 3, and then a regular double crochet, and that brings us right back here where we started. And so we're going to join 1, 2, 3 to the 3rd stitch of that beginning chain 5, slip stitch in the chain 2 space, and if you're not going to change colors, go ahead and chain 5. If you are going to change colors, don't chain 5. All right, I'm not changing colors here, so I'm going to go ahead and chain 4. I will tell you, I'm going to turn this over. What I usually do with these 2 ends only on this particular yarn is go ahead and tie them together. All right, I am going to weave them in, but I am going to tie them because I don't want it to come undone while I'm working. So I'll just put a couple knots, and then we'll come back in and I'll show you how to weave those ends in with our needle, okay? I just do that because I don't want it to come undone while I'm working. All right, so we're going to double crochet in the same stitch because we chained 5, then double crochet. It counts as a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So now we have 2 double crochets here. So we're going to double crochet in those 2 regular double crochets. That brings us to those 3 front posts. And guess what? We're going to stitch 1 front post double crochet in those 3 front post double crochets. There we go. Now that brings us to those 2 regular double crochets. 1 and 2. And now we're at the corner, and again we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. All right, so I think now you're seeing how the pattern is going to work. Those 3 stitches in the middle on each side will all be stitched in the front posts. The other double crochets will be regular double crochets. All right, let's do another side here. 1 double crochet in the 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Then we'll stitch 1 front post in each of the 3 front post double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Then 1 double crochet in those 2. And again, if it curls in, just give it a good stretch. It's kind of the nature of the nylon that we're using. And that brings us to our corner where we stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that corner. All right. And so we'll repeat what we did here on these last 2 corners and then join to the 3rd chain of our chain 5. I have completed that 4th row. I joined to the 3rd chain of my chain 5, slip stitched, and then slip stitched in the chain 2 space, and now I'm going to change colors again. I decided I want to do my trim in green. Give it kind of a flowery spring type look. All right, so I'm going to bring in my green, and now we're going to chain 1. We're going to single crochet 3 times. 1, 2, 3 single crochets. Now we're going to single crochet in each stitch across. Whether it's a regular double crochet or a front post, stitch a single crochet in it. And not in the front post portion, up at the top where we normally stitch our single crochets. All right, see? Just a single crochet in each stitch across. This brings us to our chain 2 space, and in this chain 2 space, we're going to stitch 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to head on down this other side and stitch 1 single crochet in each of those stitches across. Alrighty, so now I'm at the next chain 2 space, and I'll stitch 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And I'll repeat this on these last 2 sides and join back to my first single crochet. I repeated it all the way around. Single crochet in each stitch, 3 single crochets in each corner. Then I join to the first single crochet, and now we're going to chain 12 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is going to give us a loop so we can hang it up to dry, and we'll come back and go right in that same single crochet and join with a slip stitch. All right, and cut our yarn. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go in that next loop, pull that loop to the back, and tie off to the back. All right, but now we have a little bit of weaving in to do. All right, I've already weaved in the one that I did down here, and I wanted you to see that because it looks really nice and neat. And this yarn can be a little bit tricky when it comes to weaving in your ends. So what I do is I take the two ends like I showed you earlier. I go ahead and tie a knot. And then I'll take my needle, and if you fold that over your needle, it'll make it nice and flat, and it'll make it easier to get it in the eye of the needle. And the key to getting a good weave in with this type of yarn is to go in those stitches. See how I kind of curl it around some of those stitches and go one way. We can't go between the fibers. It doesn't work with this particular kind of yarn. All right, and then I'll go up one, and I'll kind of go back the way I came through those stitches. I'll go one way, then back the other, and then I'll go another way, making sure I stay only in those back loops of the stitches so that it doesn't show through the front. Okay. And you can see it is a little bit tricky. All right, give it a little bit of a pull and cut. All right, I didn't come through to the front. I only stitched in the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie these two as well, because with this nylon it just works really well if we do give it a little bit of a tie and give it a good pull. And I know normally in crochet we do not tie knots, but with this particular yarn it works because of the nature of the nylon. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing with these two ends. Now you need to make sure you leave yourself a little bit more of a tail than you normally do, because you need to be able to go one way and go back the other at least. I like to try to go 3, and if I don't have enough, I'll go up. And if I don't have enough, I'll take my needle and I'll go backwards with it. Staying in those back loops, I'll grab that end, stick it on my needle, and pull it through. Because we don't want our ends to come undone while we're trying to wash the sink or the dishes. All right, let me do this last one. I have completed the one that we did together, and this is the red, white, and blue one, and you can see just by changing colors at different portions of it, you get a completely different look. I also wanted to show you this one. This one is made out of a chunky number 5 cotton yarn. It's a Lion brand yarn. I don't have the label anymore, so I can't remember what the yarn is called. I also have this in a yellow. I could have added some yellow in there as well. But you can see it comes out a little bit smaller, but it is still a really nice scrubby. If you don't have this yarn, you can use a chunky 5, or you can use 2 strands of cotton together, as well as if you want it to be acrylic for good scrubbing, you can use 2 strands of acrylic as well. All right, and so that's our Friday Fun Day Granny Square Scrubbies.